Welcome my lovely bitchling clan. For today's video I have a new thing for you guys, and I'm here sitting in the middle of my setup to bring you guys something super interesting. At least it was super interesting to me. And so most of you guys know that I believe in reincarnation, which means that we have more than one life and we are reincarnated after we die into another body to be able to basically like go forth in our it's so cold here, it got cold. Creepy creeps Maxville, and the incense is going crazy and towards me. That's kind of creepy. Anyway, so the past life experiences, people believe that you can kind of like regress into your past lives by using hypnosis in order to kind of gain insight into what happened in your past life. And there are people who believe that if something traumatic happened in our past life, we can carry that to the next life and we can have issues even from that time, and understanding the past life can help you kind of like resolve that trauma or whatever. So I've been kind of wondering about like my own past life, even because I've been like wondering like, wouldn't it be cool to know like what kind of a person was I, where did I live, things like that. So what I set out to do was a past life self-hypnosis. A self-hypnosis is a well-known method to explore the underneath depths of our own subconscious mind. So, damn good cup of coffee. So, I set out to do that today. I put out a video from YouTube and began the self-hypnosis to get to know what happened to me and who was I in my past life. And you guys will not believe the kind of stuff that I got from it, and I'm gonna tell you. So basically it starts with the deep meditative state where you need to get really relaxed, so that takes about half an hour probably. And after that, in the meditation, like even before the dude who was narrating the self-hypnosis was like done, I was already getting down into the deep meditative state and getting images, and I saw my own kind of like astral body being absorbed through a ceiling of this kind of like old house, very old house, wooded house. I don't know what it's called, but like the houses that are made of big logs, like that's the kind of house that it was. Like Finnish people use those as like a summer house type of thing. So it was that kind of a house, but it was older. So, and I saw myself sinking through the ceiling into a body of this woman. I think it was a woman, I mean, I know, but she wasn't wearing a traditional Finnish like dress or anything. She was wearing, or me at this point, because it was my body and I was looking down like this, I was wearing this kind of a almost furry type of like a fur, like this kind of like skinned animal fur. And I was wearing these kind of like belts and things, and there were like tools hanging from them, and so I looked like a handy woman, let's just say that. And I was in the corner of our like house, and I knew that I was something along the lines of 25 to 27 at that time. And I looked to the left and there was staircase into the upper part of the apartment. So it was an old house, probably like, I can't even say, but at the time of like people having crossbows and swords and things like that. And there was a fireplace in the kind of like the downstairs, and it was a small house, like one room and then the upper room. So, and there was everything, like there was this table in the right side where I was standing next to the table, and in the left side there was this kind of like old time baking oven type of situation. Oh no, like fireplace where there was a fire and there was like soup cooking in the kind of like old pot that was there. And there were like candlelight I could see from the upstairs. So somebody was there, and the place was illuminated by only candlelight and the firelight that was there. It was nighttime. Outside there was a snowstorm, and I could see that. And I went to the upstairs, and I saw this old man who I didn't recognize. He was very skinny, he was balding, he was sleeping on a mattress type of thing on the ground, and he was like obviously sleeping already, and there was like this, not oil lampy thing, but this kind of thing where you could burn candles without it burning the whole house down, basically. I don't know what those are called, like like the thing that you can, like lantern. So there was a lantern that the light was coming out of, and I knew that that person was my father for some reason. And I had this kind of mixed reaction to him, like this kind of loving but yet still kind of like suffocated in a way. And I went downstairs, and at this moment, like in the self-hypnosis, the dude was like, okay, let's go back in time. Oh yeah, and I was wearing like a kind of like this kind of thing where you can put a sword in. So I had a sword and I had a crossbow in the table. So those were mine, and I knew it, and I had like a knife also on me. So I had this kind of ranger type gear on, so I looked like I could go out and like kill a bear or something. But I was a woman, and I know that sounds crazy. And all were outside, it was pitch black darkness, so we were surrounded by forest. And then the narrator of the hypnosis told me to go back into when I was 5 years old. And I went back in that body, and I kind of saw the time changing in the cabin, and I was still in the cabin. But I saw my mother this time. Like, mother wasn't there in the like first period, and I saw her. She was this kind of pretty fat woman, like very nice looking woman, this kind of like graying hair and blue eyes and kind of like doughy face. And she was talking to my father. They were arguing, and mother said that the lights in the forest are nothing, and they were arguing about some lights they had seen in the forest, these white big lights, and this comes into the story later too. But I remember when I was 5 years old, I didn't know what they meant, because there were no forest lights, like there were no lights in the village nearby or the forest. So I knew that there was a village nearby, but we lived in the middle of the forest, in the middle of nowhere. And my mother was still alive at this point, but when I was 22, she died of pneumonia, and I was left with my father alone, basically. And I knew that when the regression started to go forward. So then the narrator told me to look at when I was, like, look further, like when you were not as little, like look forward. And I see myself in a white dress in a festival type of thing in the village. So I was at the village, and I was dancing with this man. That was, to me, like, I felt really like this kind of love, and I felt this kind of acceptance and happiness, and we were dancing, and there were like, it was like Midsummer Fest or something, and people were dancing all around us, and people were like playing different instruments there. And I remember him calling me Odessa. So that's important into the story. So he called me Odessa. So my name was Odessa. And for some reason I got the name Lyublikova. So I'm not sure if that's a Lyublikova. You can tell me if that's a real name. So I think that was my name, like Odessa Lyublikova. When he called me Odessa while we were dancing, I knew that he was my husband, future husband, and we were dancing, and he called me Odessa. And I was wearing a completely different attire, much more feminine, much more like this kind of flowy and beautiful. And I remember like feeling more happy in that state, like feeling in a happy place, whereas in the future me, I felt like empty and kind of like just going through life like this, but at that moment, like, I was in love and happy, and I knew that that person was my husband and we were gonna get married. So we were also kind of celebrating that, I think, and my father was nowhere to be seen, and my mother at that time, but mother was alive, like, I knew, like, there's this knowing when you do hypnosis. But then fast forward, and this is like a trigger warning. I'm gonna put a trigger warning to the video here. So if you don't like assault, this is a sexual assault, trigger warning, there's gonna be talk about that. So a year later, and this is kind of creepy, like, I jump into a year later in the hypnosis, and I see myself at the end of the village, like near in the woods, and this man is like basically like sexually assaulting me, and he stabbed me with a knife to like my hip area, and then he proceeded to like split my back here, like with the knife. So he made like a in my shoulder area, like a kind of, and things happened in that, like, I felt like I looked at that from outside, so I wasn't in the body. That was kind of happening to me in that hypnosis state, and I knew in the self-hypnosis that I can get off at any time, and it's not scary that way, but it's still kind of scary to know that you are that person, kind of, and like that happened probably in my like that regression, like the past life. So I was wondering if that's the reason why I always have like shoulder pain, and why I'm always controlling things and doing things, like if something like that happened to me. And then the hypnosis fast forwards again a little bit, and I have learned that I'm barren, that I cannot get any children, and I didn't tell anyone about the rape that happened because I didn't want to. I remember this so vividly, like, this is nothing that I would think about, but like, I didn't want to put a shame to my like father and to my husband, because I knew that that basically like someone raping me was my fault, in that, like, that's nothing that I think about, but Odessa thought about that, so she kept that to herself. Nobody knew. Well, my father knew because he had seen the scars that the person had left, and I think I became barren because he knifed me into that place, like on my hip. But yeah, I became barren, and we tried to like get children with my husband, but we couldn't in the future, like a few years later. I was 25, I think, or 24 or something, and my husband like basically decided that he can't be with me because I can't bear any children. And that was to Odessa, like, I felt this kind of deep sorrow in Odessa, which is me, haha. So I felt this deep sorrow, and after that, like, my father started, because I started to like become a hermit, like I didn't go to village anymore. I was staying with my father and mother in the kind of like cabin, and then soon after my mom died of pneumonia in that like setting, or in that hypnosis vision, and I was numb at that point. I didn't feel like anything about like my mother dying basically, and I knew that it was gonna happen anyway, like she had been sick and she was weak at that point. Yeah, and this is kind of the hardest part of the hypnosis. But like, my father probably knew that I had been raped and knew what happened to me, and because of that he started to, and he knew that I didn't have any like feelings to go to the village, and that's why he started to teach me boy things, because I was alone in the village and I couldn't get a husband. So I was kind of like this old hag, basically. Not old hag at 30, but like my father started to teach me fishing, hunting, fighting, to, I guess, like he taught me like how to handle swords, because he wanted me to be safer next time, which I think Odessa felt at that point, that that was very unconventional. That I don't know, but for some reason I got this, like, it was kind of a secret that I knew those things, because it wasn't normal for women to do that at that time. So my father just wanted me to have something in my life, because I was such a hermit. I never went to the village anymore, and I was always in the woods and only like taking care of my father. So we went fishing and like hunting together, and when he got too old to do that, I started to do that and got the food for us and hunted the food and did things like that. And then it jumps back to when I'm 27 and into that body that I saw the first time I went there, like went into the regression. And it's the nighttime and my father is sleeping outside, and I can like feel that there's something. I can hear these voices in the forest, or this kind of weird noises. Yes, it was like noises, and like the forest is dark, but I kind of like feel uneasy. So I take my bow and I take my sword and lantern and I go out. And like, because I've know now how to defend myself, I'm not scared, and I go out to the front porch type of thing that they have, and I start looking into the forest, and I can hear noises like this whirring sounds, kind of like these electronic noises, even though I didn't know what those were, because those weren't invented at that time yet. But I hear them from the forest, and I start going there, like further from the house, and I lock the house up and I go out, and like I start seeing the lights that my father and mother talked about when I was 5, and I see these kind of bright lights swirling in the like other side of the forest, in between the forest, like they're kind of like floating, and they're big, like they're half a meter big, like that kind of like like balls of light, and I can't explain it in any other way. And I'm worried about my father at that point, like there's something near us, a village is far away, I can't get my father there, he's very sickly, it's like a snowstorm. So I am determined to like investigate what the fuck is going on in the forest, and I start going further and further into the forest. And when I get nearer the white lights, that's when I wake up from the hypnosis like that. Like it wouldn't let me go through to that point, and like what happened after, like I have no idea. But I was there like determined to like keep my father safe or something, and I had like all my battle gear. So what I can gather from this, I was a woman named Odessa Lyublikova, and I think I lived in Russia maybe, or Ukraine or somewhere, I'm not sure, but the name sounds like that. I had a husband, I was raped, and like, and then I became like a hermit, and a badass hermit. So that's basically what went down. And when I got back from the regression, like I had this kind of feelings from those events, even though they never happened to me. But I felt like this kind of relief feeling of like, oh, that's what it is. And I feel like I have this kind of problems to still like to my own boyfriend at this time to like really trust. I have trust issues, and I wonder if that's something to do with my past life experience of like my man leaving me basically because I was barren. And I knew in that was gonna happen. Like I knew, because after I got like sexually assaulted in that place, I knew that my value as a woman went down basically. And yeah, so it was kind of all these kind of weird things, and I don't know if these are historically accurate or something. It would be so cool to look, but I need to tell you guys, like I started googling things. So I googled Odessa Lyublikova, I found nothing. But when I googled Odessa UFO sighting, I found several like articles and videos about things happening in a town called Odessa in Ukraine. and there were light balls in the forest and in the sky and things like that, and people in Odessa have seen those. So I just thought that that's probably a coincidence, but that was a fun little coincidence. So if you get any ideas of like this past life thing, then please let me know, because I really want to know. And sorry for the long video. I hope this was interesting at least, and I see you guys in my next video. Odessa out. Bye.